Welcome to Adapted, the show where we discuss adaptations of various forms. My name is Tom, and with me is...
Pat?
Today is, in part, a book coming from or out of the colonial project that took England to various parts of the world, in this case, India. We have with us Rudyard Kipling, who was born in 1865 in England's Bombay, to English parents. His first language was Hindi, learned from his nurse, and he ran around Bombay as a little kid. He was nicknamed the Little Friend of the World, just as his character Kim was nicknamed years later. He then went back to England and educated, but he had to stay with a couple who boarded the children of naval officers and were apparently quite abusive to those children. And this became, in later life, a sort of inspiration for his story, Baba Black Sheep. And it was also what he credited for in kind of inspiring his imagination. He had to sort of check out of this abusive atmosphere and develop internal narratives, etc. Apparently, he did not have the academics for Oxford, so he went to the United Service College, and then after that, returned to India in the area of India that today is Pakistan and became a newspaper writer. He almost immediately found success as a poet and published lots of poetry at this time. He suffered a bank collapse and then he moved to his wife's family's home in snow-covered Vermont. And it was
Really?
in
Oh, I
Vermont.
did not know that.
Yes, he wrote The Jungle Book in Vermont, as well as a number of his
Really?
other major works. Yes, including Gunga Din. He also wrote Gunga Din in
I had
Vermont.
no idea on that fact. That's pretty cool, actually. I had no
Yeah,
clue on
I,
that.
I was completely surprised by this.
This is like when I learned that like Isaac Dinesen lived in like Brooklyn for a while.
Yes.
Like it's just these like people like really what were they doing there?
Yeah, I love the idea of, like, apparently his first child was born there in 3 feet of snow, and he's working on the Jungle Book in 3 feet of snow. And if you've read the Jungle Book, trying to put that next to Vermont is about as
It's not,
awkward a
yeah.
comparison as you could
I
make.
mean, even nowadays, Vermont is pretty rural. I mean, I imagine in 1900 it was absurdly
Yeah.
rural.
Yeah, and all his work seemed to be either like kind of jungle or very cosmopolitan. Kim is very cosmopolitan. So Vermont is
Yeah.
just not what you think about when you think about Rudyard Kipling, but there he was.
I love that fact. That is a
Yeah.
great one.
He developed a big celebrity in his life, especially at this time, and he had a lot of people visiting him, including Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who came to Vermont and gave Kipling a few golf lessons while they were there.
So I knew that Arthur Conan Doyle was traveling through America at this time period. I did not know that Rudyard Kipling was here.
Yeah, Rudyard Kipling was here, and he was learning golf. And so this is 92 to 96, 1892 to 96.
That would line up with the sign of the form.
Yes, it would. Yeah, Sign of the Four is
96, I
95?
think.
No,
95,
96?
96,
Okay.
right around there, yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so he traveled a lot. He traveled to San Francisco. He traveled to Japan as well, and traveled to South Africa. Wrote a lot about these different scenes, and he left America after he had a very famous run-in with his brother-in-law over some kind of financial matter. He also was very upset because apparently at this point the British were debating the Venezuelan government about a border dispute, and America came in and said, "We are the bearers of the Monroe Doctrine, and you have to go through us," and this created an anti-British sentiment. Whatever, it's actually not that interesting, but he left, went to England for a while. He returned to America, where both he and his daughter caught pneumonia. As he was recovering from pneumonia, he learned his daughter died from the sickness. And he started to develop a sort of more bitter outlook after that. Meanwhile, he started to develop a sort of a support for American imperialism, White Man's Burden is about America going into the Philippines and taking over the Philippines as their responsibility. However, his imperialism is often kind of seen as a blank, as just one sort of universal idea of the West conquering everything. This isn't entirely so. He was strongly opposed to the German Wilhelm II's attempt to influence China during the Boxer Rebellion. He was very outspoken against that. So I think he had a probably more nuanced idea of imperialism than we tend to think of, even though White Man's Burden is a little embarrassing to say the least. Um, he won the Nobel Prize in 1907. He was 42. He is the first English speaker, and I believe still the youngest person to win the Nobel
He
Prize
is,
in
yes.
literature.
Do you know who's second?
Who's second youngest?
Yeah.
I don't. Who is?
Camus. Camus is second
Oh,
youngest.
okay. Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. We will get to that in due
We will get to
time.
Camus in 50 years.
Yes.
For now, I think he would, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year he wins. It's pretty late.
It's in the 60s, is it?
I
Anyways?
think it's earlier than that, actually. I
Okay.
think he might be a little earlier. I think he
Yeah.
dies in the 60s. I think it's
Maybe in
earlier
the
than that, but
50s. Well,
I
so
think it's something like that. But anyway.
we'll get to it in the next year, probably.
Oh my
No, 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 we won't. But anyway, regardless.
God.
So he's nominated by Oxford professor Charles Oman. He's the first English author to win. During World War One, his son John can't get into the British Air Force because of his eyesight. So Kipling pulls a few strings, gets John into the war.
That was a bad idea.
It was a bad idea because John died at Los, and his body remained missing until 1992. So in 1992, they recovered a body and they realized it was John Kipling. After this, Kipling's attitude towards the war changed greatly. He went from a supporter to not a supporter. He dies in 1936, survived by only one of his three children. In the presentation speech to Kipling, permanent secretary of the Swedish Academy, everybody's favorite permanent secretary of the Swedish Academy, Carl David af Weersen, spoke initially of the poet Tennyson, if you know Alfred Lord Tennyson. And so his opening remarks on Kipling is like two paragraphs about Tennyson. But you could see he has sort of an argument, and and Weersen is praising Tennyson for the pervasiveness of Tennyson's idealism, of course, because what the hell else would he talk about? Um, Unfortunately for Weersen, Tennyson had died in 1892, so
Oh, here's the next best thing.
basically that's what it feels like. It feels like Kipling carried on the English language idealism of Tennyson, and so we'll just give it to him as a representative not only of Tennyson but of the great accomplishments of English language literature, specifically British writing in English. He goes on to celebrate Kipling's ability to see into the Hindu's true nature, and he also celebrated Kipling's ability to celebrate imperialism. That was a big thumbs up from Weersen. And he saw Kipling's internal eye as very developed, etc. But one thing he does say, which is I think new in our summary of Weersen presentation speeches, which I am
You're
the
getting a little repetitive.
they're getting a little repetitive, but he does say here, and I can't believe how many of these things I've read. I don't know if there's an expert in these, but I have to be coming close to the top of that field. Anyway, he talks about Weersen talks about creativity as celebrating something that creates new things. I think this is interesting. We don't really hear this from Weersen yet. Usually he's looking into the past as representing or capturing a certain ideal truth or ideal spirit of reality in some way. This idea that he is celebrating with Kipling is the newness, creating something new, new insights, new takes on things, and that allows you to see things for what they are. I don't think it's a huge deal, but it is something that seemed to be different from past presentation speeches. I will say Weersen also celebrates Kipling's nationalism. And ultimately, what it comes down to, it seems to be, is the Academy's desire to pay homage to the literature of England and its contribution to narrative. which ultimately seems to have won the prize. Little factoid, there was no banquet that year because King Oscar II of Sweden died. So in honor of him, they did not actually hold the banquet. They just had the speech. So there you go. There's my opening.
Must have been very disappointing to just be there and be like, all right, I guess I get my speech and now I gotta go get dinner at the hotel.
Yeah, I guess
Instead of
so.
like, that's kind of sad. Be like, I want my meal. He's dead. We're not gonna bring him back. Just feed me. I came to Sweden.
Feed me. Yeah, I came to
Yeah,
Sweden.
like
Feed me.
I came to Sweden. Feed me. Like this is. I feel like that was a bit of a letdown. It's not like the
Yeah.
other ones who could just be like, well, I'll just go home and have my dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. It's so rare at this point to have a non-Swede as the winner.
Nuns. Yeah, exactly. It's
Or Norwegian
or
or
Norwegian.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's get into it. So we're talking about Kim today. This is a book initially published serially between December of 1900.
It's our first 20th century book, by the way. It's our first 20th
Ah,
century book, so
very good. Yeah. Right on the cusp of the 20th century.
it's
December
right there, but it's
1900.
there.
It
Yep,
counts to October of
it counts.
1901 in a number of magazines, McClure's and Cassell's magazine, and eventually published in 1901 as a novel by Macmillan and Co. And we should get into this. It is the plot of the book follows Kimball O'Hara.
Kimball O'Hara, which my cat is named Kimball. I
Oh,
should say.
named after, I think, the dining hall
It was
at your
named after the
college.
dining hall. However, I do love Kim, so it works out well.
It works out well. But he is the orphan son of an Irish soldier, and he lives basically on his own in India. Most people think he's Indian because his skin has been darkened from years out there. And
He's
he
also half Indian, isn't he? His mother is Indian,
no,
isn't
his
she?
mother's Irish.
Oh, I thought his mother was. I thought his mother was Indian for some reason.
No, no, his mother's Irish.
Oh,
He's
okay.
100%
Irish. Okay.
genetically speaking not Indian. Yeah, he's Irish. He's actually, I guess, Catholic, or his heritage is Catholic. Um, and he's just a vagabond, and he runs around doing chores for a horse trader, Mabab Ali, who is also participating in something called the Great Game, which is a contest over this region of the world between British and the Russian Empire at this time. And so Ali trusts Kim because he's trustworthy, at least to Ali, and he is also very smart and very good at sort of taking care of, I guess, what you think of as kind of real world problems, problems that arise.
He's
Yeah.
hard boiled,
He's
I
hard
would say.
boiled. Thank you.
That's what
That's
I would
good.
say. He's hard boiled.
He's hard boiled. He also befriends, and this is another big plot, a Tibetan Lama who is on the quest to free himself from the wheel of things by finding the place that a legendary arrow landed that created a river. And supposedly, if you go into
You know,
this
the
river,
Buddha, the Buddha, the Buddha fired an arrow,
mhm,
and where the arrow landed, a river appeared, and whoever bathes in the river will be freed from the wheel of things. Yeah.
mhm, yes, the sort of desire, let's say. And Kim really believes this Lama and has a very touching, authentic love for this man. Who and it's not the Lama, he's an older man, but he's very learned too. We learn that he knows a tremendous amount of stuff, but he's also kind of childish, the Lama, and Kim has to take care of him. And so Kim becomes his what's called a Chila, which is just it seems to be the Hindu word for discipline, or excuse me, not discipline, disciple.
Disciple.
And he accompanies him on his journey, and we see Kim dealing with the effects of the Great Game. He eventually gets caught, found out, and has to go back to school, dealing with that, and also dealing with managing his llama and protecting his llama and being a good Chila to his llama. And it's a really engrossing book. And I have talked a lot. Now I want to hear from you, Pat, and hear what you think. What are the merits, do you think, of this work, Kim?
Yeah, I mean, I love Kim. This is I've read it. I've read it twice. I haven't read it. I didn't read it for this time. I read it once in college. Actually for a class that I took on colonial Ireland and India. So I we read the book for that class. So I'd read it in college and I liked it then. And then I read it maybe I think 6 years ago, but it might have been even 5 years ago. It might have been during like very beginning of COVID, and I read it to my son, who was like 2 years old. But so I knew he wasn't really listening. But I just wanted to read it to him because I was like, well, you know what, I might as well be reading out loud to him, and I'll read something I want to read. So I read him Kim, which my favorite was at one point. I think he was only like two, but I do remember him saying at one point, and he was like, "Dada, how the llama talk?" And I'm like, what? And he's like, the llama. How the llama talk? I'm like, no, it's not a, it's not a llama. It's not the llama, the animal, but it's like a, like a holy man, a priest. Um, but I think this is the first book I think that we could kind of I would call a really like I think that Sienkiewicz has written some great novels. I'm not sure Quo Vadis is his best, but I think this is the first really great novel I think that we've read that really stands on its own merits. I think people, even if Kipling hadn't won the Nobel Prize, we'd be reading this book. I think people would be reading Kim. I'm not sure people would still be reading Quo Vadis. Maybe, maybe not. I think Kim is going to stand the test of time. I think people will still be reading it in 100 years, regardless of whether Kipling had won the Nobel Prize. I think its merits are it's just a good story. I think it's sort of meant to be a kid's book to some extent, like a young adult book. It's by the standards of today's young adult novels, it's incredibly sort of dense and well written and sort of difficult. So I don't think it's kind of you don't think you're getting. I don't even know what young adult novels are out there now. Twilight, is that a young adult novel?
No, no,
What's it?
that started out actually as fan fiction porn, so I
No,
wouldn't
no,
call
no.
it that.
That's no Twilight didn't. That was
Oh,
50 Shades of
oh, oh,
Grey.
I'm getting them
50
mixed
Shades
up.
of
Yeah,
Grey
you're
started
right.
out
You're
as
right.
fan
Yeah,
fiction porn of Twilight.
Twilight is the young
Um,
adult novel, or like Hunger Games or something like
Yeah,
that.
things like that. I mean, and I think, and my understanding is they're actually fairly well written. The Hunger Games is supposed to be a little bit better, but Kim is a much better written book, clearly. But I think it's just a good story. Like as a kid's story, the idea of being a kid, sort of on your own, going traveling around India on the trains and meeting all the people, and then getting involved in international conspiracies and spies and carrying hidden messages. It's like a really good version of like Treasure Island or something like that. It's a really good story in and of itself. It's also just it's really touching. Like I really love the relationship between Kim and the llama. There is just and I especially love the thing I really love is the llama's sort of relationship because clearly the llama loves Kim. He sees him as you can tell he clearly sees him as like a son, as his sort of adopted son. But he's supposed to be releasing himself from the world. He's supposed to have no attachments here. So he has to keep justifying why he's doing nice things for Kim or why he cares about Kim. And there's just sort of like even when he pays for Kim to go to school, he gets money and he pays for Kim to go to school, and he basically says, I'm doing this because it gets me merit, because giving you education will help me get merit. So he has to constantly make it about, he has to kind of deny his love for Kim at the same time that it's sort of it's undeniable. It's just obvious. So I love their relationship. I think I actually do really like the horse trader character. Like I just think there's just a lot of the characters are really fun. It it has a lot going for it in terms of character, in terms of its theme, in terms of just sort of the poignancy of some of it, and just the sheer adventure of the story. It's a really good novel.
I would agree. It is very, very funny. Kim is
Yes.
deceptive. He knows how to beg. That's something that's interesting about Kim. He knows how to beg, which involves BSing to a certain degree. What does he say? I have no mother, I have no father. Please help me, friend of the poor.
Yeah,
He's
friend of the
always
poor, the holy man can curse as well as bless.
yes.
So, is that like
So he's always
he's a con man.
he's
I
a
mean, he's a
con
con
man,
man.
but he's also utterly honest with his llama. He's also utterly honest with Mahbub Ali, the horse trader, who is the great game guy, and who seems to be the greatest of the spies in this area. You get the impression he is an
Yeah.
immensely talented man and wealthy man in terms of the great game that's played. And so with Kim, you get someone who is deceptive, but only to help people who he either has incredible and justified respect for or love for.
Well, there's also a sense that you're that's how you're supposed to play the game. He's playing, he plays games. That's what Kim does. He's very good at playing games. And even the very act of begging is a game. Everybody knows. There's no sense that anybody is falling for his schemes. You just badger them and pester them and until you find the thing that will get them to give you food or money. That's what he does. And so it's a game. He just has to read people and try to figure out what it is he can say that will trigger their giving reflex. And so there's a sense of BS to it, but everybody knows it's BS. Like I think there's a sense of that. Even the bar, he bargains with everybody. And that's true. I mean, if you ever go to especially I haven't been to India, but you do this, you go to the bazaars in Turkey or you go to, the bazaars in the Middle East, you can't pay face value. They'll, even they know like you have to bargain. I remember like bargaining for a chess set once in one of the markets and just like the guy just they get irate and then they just sort of I still remember I talked him down to whatever price it was and then finally I was like okay and that's in dollars not in euros right and he was like no just get it and they just kind of you just keep going and going and then you have to like work it down and so it's just but everybody knows that what's going on here they know this is part of the game is you pretend to get angry and then you pretend to do this so Kim is good at playing this games, all the games that he's supposed to play. So yeah, he BS's everybody. That's why I say it's hard boiled in the sense of, have we talked about hard boiled comedies at all on this?
I don't think so. Not on this season, or anyway, of
Yeah, I can't remember
Adapted.
if we did it ever with the when we did the noir thing. So the idea of the hard
We
boiled,
talked
the
about
hard
Hard Boiled with
we probably talked
Noir.
about with
So.
the detectives, yeah, with noir. So the idea of a hard boiled character is just somebody who lives in a difficult circumstance, but they're toughened. They know how to do it. They know how to get things done. They're practical. They're hard boiled. They know how to accomplish things, and that's sort of what Kim is. He just knows how to play all of the games that are going on in the street whether that's conning people or when that's to be honest or what he needs to do. And I think it's funny. It is very fun to
Mhm.
watch him be good at what he does.
Mhm. He's still, though, a child, and coming of age is a big part of this work as well.
Yeah.
And being kind
It's
of,
one of the better coming of age
Mhm.
novels, I think. It
Yes.
certainly beats Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because there's a lot more going on. I mean, Catcher in the Rye is about a person who is, for some reason, upset at the world, right? Kim isn't upset at the world. Kim is to a certain degree too far forward into the world. I mean, this is what you're talking about with hard boiled. To be hard boiled, you have to be worldly. But he's also a child who doesn't really know who he is. He can't read at the beginning of the book. And he does not know he is this, what they call a Sahib, a white man, basically, which is what he is. He's this white man who is kind of entitled to a lot of freedoms that he doesn't realize. And once he's able to kind of take advantage of those freedoms and indulge them through education, through his connections with Colonel Crichton, who is the big British guy playing the great game in Kim's life, then he's sort of able to go forward. And he never kind of comes of age. We get a lot of Kim, even in the last chapter, we get a lot of Kim going, "Who is Kim?" and sort of breaking down. He sort of cries at this point and then recovers himself. We never get past that point where Kim, becomes the artist Stephen Dedalus or whatever,
Yeah.
thing you want to compare him to. We don't have that. It's still a kid's book in the very end, but there's that kind of point of awareness that's coming. at the very end. And that seems to be a big theme in this book, is this person who has this kind of contended sense of self. He is sort of always out of place to a certain extent, even though, as you mentioned, his hard boiled nature always allows him to be in place. He always kind of fits in. But he's an Irishman in a British country that isn't actually England, and everybody thinks he's Indian, even though he is really an Irish child who is in a former, or his parents are in a British
Military unit, yeah,
garrison.
military
Yeah.
unit, yeah.
And he is working for a Muslim, but is seemingly and being trained as a Muslim too. I mean, Mahbub Ali is teaching him the Quran. He's teaching him to memorize the Quran, but he's also
Following
following
a
a
Buddhist
Buddhist
lama.
Lama from Tibet around to, and seems to have the most authentic, if even though somewhat ignorant, dedication to that belief, to the beliefs of the Lama. And so he's sort of all over the place, and he sort of has this unusual amount of freedom as a consequence of that. But he also it never kind of coalesces into, okay, I'm going to be the Saab, the British Saab who plays the great game. I'm going to be the next Colonel Crichton. Or I'm going to throw this all away and become a Buddhist. Or I'm going to work on the Quran and become the next Mahbub Ali, right?
As a PhD in English, I'm sure you know the word that I would say you would use to describe him.
What is it?
Liminal. He's liminal.
Yeah,
Am
yes
I-
and no,
He's a liminal
though.
figure. He does not occupy he occupies spaces in between.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I think he occupies spaces in between, but I think unlike most liminal figures who are on the breast of becoming something or are trapped by their absence from any kind of individualized participation, for Kim it's like ultimate freedom. He could be anything, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's the kid element to it too. It's like, I think this probably makes a lot more sense for children in the first decade of the 20th century who might be in India or something. But still, it's like this childhood fantasy of you could be whatever you want to be. You could be anything. And it's not only can you have an authentic father figure like the Lama, even though I think the Lama seems more like his child than than he seems like the Lama's
Well, I
child.
think it's a, they have a complicated
They do, yeah.
relationship.
Um, but it's also you can be a spy. You can be a spy in this international affair. It's James Bond-esque, 60 years before James Bond. I think that's why I like this book. And it has a bit of the picaresque about it too, which we've talked about
Yeah.
the picaresque on this podcast, but just to
Forrest
reiterate it
Gump. Yeah, we did with Forrest
with
Gump,
Forrest
right?
Gump,
Yeah.
yeah, it's sort of when a character, a kind of roguish character jumps from scene to scene to scene. And the scenes aren't necessarily one arrow driving through a single plot, but more of a collection of scenes. That's not entirely true.
This generally
It
has a
generally has a plot,
plot,
but it does have a
though.
bit of the
I
picaresque
would
to it.
agree.
Mm.
There is a picaresque quality. I don't know if I would. I don't know if that's the defining element of it, but it does have that quality. Like there were just even when I remember reading this for the first time, and it's just he literally will be like, I want to go to I don't know the city. He's gonna pick one randomly. Like I want to go to Lahore, and he'll just hop on a train. He'll be like, "This is where we're going, Llama," and he literally just drags the guy onto a train, and they're like, "How are we affording the ticket?" He's like, "We're not," and then they
Yeah.
just like get on the
Mhm.
train and they're gone,
Mhm.
or they get on the Grand Trunk Road, and it's like. We're just gonna wander the road and see who we meet. I love when he meets the old woman in the carriage. He meets this old woman who's sort of like and then it just hangs out by their campfire and just bothers her. It's just like he just meets these random people on the road and just talks with them and kind of BS's with them and moves on. Like there is definitely a sort of somewhat random quality, but oftentimes the only reason I say oftentimes the characters he meets actually have plot functions later. You know what I mean? So usually they're not totally random. They actually do fit back into a narrative chunk at some point. But I would agree. There is a certainly a a wander quality to it. This is a he loves. I think it's true. Kipling clearly loves and knows India fairly well because he writes about it fairly in a detailed and sort of convincing way with a certain level of authority. I'm not sure if authority is quite the right word, but uh
It feels that way because he knows
authenticity. Yeah.
he knows the language very well. He knows the
Yeah.
terms. It's a book filled with terms that he thankfully translates for you. But yeah, there is a sort there's sort of a pigeon to it, right? There's like a sort of mixing of
Yeah.
various Indian
But
languages with English.
in a better way than, say, Quo Vadis did. Quo Vadis always felt like he uses lots of Latin terms and things like that, but they always feel like it was Sienkiewicz read an article about this and really, wants to make sure that, you know he read the Wikipedia on this, and he's just going to give you some breakdown of some Latin term for a paragraph or two. I'm like, yeah, you just wanted to show off that you knew what this thing was, whereas this feels a bit more woven.
Yeah, yeah, and that was yeah really enjoyable. I think I read this in 2005 for the first time. And I don't know why it did not strike me the first time I read it. I don't know what it was. I think, and this is true, I read the Jungle Book this week as well. I think his work is one of those things that it benefits a lot from rereading. But anyway, regardless, this is my second time with the book, and I yeah really really enjoyed reading it this time. Even though it is it's a slow read, and I took a lot of time with
It's
it
slow,
this time
yeah.
around. I don't think, I mean, we're talking a lot about the Great Game, about this kind of spy aspect. It isn't really,
It's a relatively
yeah,
minor part of it.
it's sort of it's sort of a driver of certain plot points. Like they have to go over here for, to get papers or something like that. But it really isn't a kind of rambunctious spy thriller. It's far more interested, I think, in the comic relationships of Kim and these various other people. I
Yeah,
think it
it's the people that he
enjoys it.
meets along the
Mm.
way. And yeah, the spy part sort of until you get to the end, the part when they're up like in the mountains, that's very much like the thriller aspect of it. But for the most part, he just sort of is sent to deliver his message. He delivers his message and then he just goes his own way. And then in the next four chapters are the different people he meets on the Grand Trunk Road. I think there's like an entire chapter just describing the Grand Trunk Road and just what it was and why it was made and the different types of people that walk along it. Like it's just that's not it really has nothing to do with any plot element. He just thinks this is really interesting and wants to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a question of atmosphere. He's
Yeah.
interested, Kipling is interested in setting, he's interested in this place that is just probably very strange. And I can imagine growing up in India at 5, and his first language was not English. Apparently, it was Hindu and Hindi, and then leaving India for decades and living in like America and Japan and all these places, and England for a long period of
Can
time.
imagine many places that are much less Indian than Vermont.
Yes,
That's not a very
yeah. And then going back to India, at least imaginatively, through this work, when living in Vermont and England and places like that, and just really kind of capturing how kind of strange this place is, how different it is from the world he knows. Shall we move into the movie?
Yeah, why
What
not?
the hell not? So, the 1950 movie of Kim. This movie had been in development with MGM since 1938, but an unfortunate Second World War put it on hold. It was juiced up again in 1942, starring Mickey Rooney,
Oh
everybody's
God.
favorite childhood
Oh
actor,
Lord.
who is in no way annoying.
That would have been
That would
horrible.
have been horrible. It was postponed for fear of offending both the Indians and, more importantly, the Russians. They thought it would be bad to offend
Oh,
the
that's true.
Russians
Yeah.
in 1942. However, when India gave MGM permission in 1948 to make the movie, the film went full bore, as suddenly it became incredibly marketable to show Russians as villains for some reason.
Well,
Yeah,
that worked out.
I don't know why, but apparently they were really into showing Russians as villains in 1948. 2 years
It's
later,
as
it
if
got.
that alliance fell apart very quickly. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Um, so apparently, believe it or not, this movie was incredibly successful. It made a profit over $1 million, and it became Errol Flynn's highest grossing film. So Errol Flynn, the Robin Hood actor, one of the most successful film stars ever, his highest grossing film was this.
What was this? All right. Never.
And here you go. Um, so Pat, what did you think of
No.
Kim, the 1950 film?
I can see why it was probably popular. There is a quality to it. Like it there is sort of again it has some fun qualities to it. The atmosphere, again, it's very atmospheric. It films in a lot of beautiful locations. The Kim actor is actually quite I liked him actually. I thought he's pretty good. And he sort of has the charm and the humor and the sort of just the I don't know I don't know what word I'm looking for, but he has that quality that just makes him fun to watch on the screen. Uh, Errol Flynn is fine, but the issue is so I can see why it did well. Like it is a
Yeah,
fun
it's
movie. If you were
Dean
going to,
Stockwell.
yeah,
Is it
which we
plays
looked up as
Kim?
my favorite is the only I thought, oh, I wonder if this kid ever did anything after this, and I looked at that I haven't seen him in anything, and I thought he's in Blue Velvet. And that the heck is he in Blue Velvet?
Yeah, he plays the
Plays Ben, the
yeah.
singer.
Yeah, Dean Stockwell had quite a career actually. He was in
I just didn't I don't think I've seen him in anything. I looked at his list. He's got a fairly extensive filmography. I just hadn't seen him in anything. Of the movies that were on there that I looked at quickly and I thought, "Oh, Blue Velvet." I think he's in another movie that I saw in the 90s that I remember being like, oh, he's in that too. But he certainly had the kid had a successful career and he's pretty good. And I, it's a romp, but as a movie, it's, uh, the biggest, one of the things that drives me up a wall are the voiceovers. It's just lazy narration. You can tell they basically, which some ways I get. They're basically, we want this movie under 2 hours. So we're just gonna have like, and so Kim was happy to be going out with the llama onto the Grand Trunk Road. And then they just sort of have this voiceover you're like, well, couldn't you just, this is the like, couldn't you show me that instead of
Mhm.
telling me that? It has that Ed Wood quality of just have a fairly long chunk of voiceover to just tell me what's going to happen and then have me a scene and sort of setting them up. And it's bad screenwriting as a particular bed bug that it drove me crazy.
Yeah, the plot is also cut
No,
to
the plot's cut to
shreds.
shreds. They absolutely hack the thing, but
Yeah. The Kim, I would say I agree with you. I think Dean Stockwell as Kim captures that character fairly well. Um, I think Errol Flynn is pretty bad as Mabub,
Mabubali,
which they pronounce as Mabubali, and
Mabubali, yeah. When they
Mabubali,
said it,
which
I went,
threw me
this is
off
one of
for a
those ones
while.
when they said it, I went, Mabubali. And I went, oh, Mabub Ali.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. But that was the one when I heard it at first, I went, who is he? I don't know who that is. Like,
Hmm.
oh, you're just massacring his name.
Yeah, and the llama is sidelined,
Yeah, the llama's just kind of a
and
plot
it's
plot element, really.
odd. And the point you make about the llama, which I think is a really good one, is that the llama is looking to be separated from desire, but ultimately love is a type of desire, and he
Yeah,
loves Kim.
Kim.
And what happens in the book, and we're going to spoil the book. I mean, you're listening to a podcast on Kim. If you are worried about spoilers, this is a bizarre thing to do. But in the book, eventually the llama goes, okay, I bathed in my river. It's okay. I'm going to come back with you, and I'm going to stay with you to Kim. In the movie, he wanders into the hills, imagines it's not a river, I think it's a lake.
I don't know
Ima-
what that was.
yeah,
Yeah.
imagines a very green lake, jumps into it, and then dies, and then it cuts back and you see him lying dead in a river. And he contributes virtually nothing in between the first time we see him and in the last time.
He contributes a few plot elements. That's all he does.
Does he even? What plot elements does he contribute?
Well, he pays for Kim to go to school.
Oh, right. Okay.
One. He serves as cover for Kim to travel,
Hmm.
is sort of the idea.
Yes, that's true.
And then he sort of, I don't know, yells at the Russian when the Russian's about to shoot him.
Hmm. Yeah. In the
They
book,
have him be like, "My chilo," and he like and
yeah,
he like swings a shoe at him or something.
yeah.
So he doesn't really the whole relationship there, which is very touching and very genuine in the book. It comes across as, yes, he cares about his llama, but there is also a little bit of how much, is Kim buying this? Is this manipulation? What is this? In the book, it's very clear that they sort of have a father-son relationship, regardless of which direction it's going, as you said. Like they have a legitimate love for one another, and it is a very touching and a very important part of the book. It's one of the more challenging. This is why I love this book. I know this is why I think this is a really well written book. There's lots of ironies and contradictions in a relationship. Kipling has no desire to explain them. This is how you know this is just good. He just sets them up and just says, well, this is the way life works sometimes. Things are weird and ironic and confusing and there's no reason for it. This is just what they are. And so they leave it that way. That doesn't really exist here. It's just sort of it's a pretty weird. It's such a weird movie shorthand kind of thing. Like movies often do this. They have shorthand for stuff. This is a relationship that doesn't work well for shorthand, but they still do it. So it's confusing.
Yeah, I don't know why Kim is committed to this guy. And it's also in the section of the book where the llama does something. It's he hits somebody with his pen case when the Russian is trying to attempt to steal an illustration the llama did of the Wheel of Life, the Wheel of
Oh
Desire.
yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't read it in a few years. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, yeah.
And that's why, and the hitting people with his pen case, I don't know what this pen case is supposed to look like, but is apparently the one act of desire the llama, or the one act of emotional verve, I suppose you would say, that the Lama has done since his conversion to Buddhism. He used to be actually like a sort of spirit seeker or what do you call them? People who read tarot cards and things like that. He apparently used to,
Mystic. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, something like that, like a roadside mystic type of thing. But once he converted, his one act desire was hitting people with his. He got in a fight and hit somebody with his pen case. And in this
For
scene,
whatever reason, as a even now when I remember reading that section, I always just pictured it as like a kid's pencil case. Like, and I know it's not. I picture like a kid's pencil case, just like this plastic thing that he's like, and I know it's not.
whacking people with.
Yeah, he's just whacking people
Yeah.
with. But yes, I
Yeah.
assume it's some sort of like a tube. I always picture it was some sort of like a tube, like a wooden tube of some sort or something like
There's
that. Like
something
a
that
something you could
holds writing
something that
utensils
yeah,
and
and you could
paper.
really swing it. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and he hits the Russian with it, who tears the illustration he did, and so he kind of jumps back into to desire again. And the consequence of this is it defends Kim, and this speaks to the point you're talking about, which is, in the end, he's not really interested. He is interested, but he doesn't succeed in separating himself from this world because he has love, right? And love causes him to do this angry thing and attack the Russian. And that results in good things for Kim. Eventually, they get the papers from the Russians, and that's very useful for the British for whatever reason. In this movie, though, by having him actually find an imaginary version of the river and I guess presumably wash his sins away and die, it takes the llama's quest so seriously that it separates the llama from his relationship with Kim. And since that relationship isn't particularly well built up to begin with, you get this weird thing where the llama is this appendage to the movie that doesn't make sense. And I take your point that he actually does contribute to the plot mechanics, but
Well, I mean, you could
could
easily
somebody
you don't
else
need
do
him there.
that?
Does I mean
Yeah.
you don't need him. You could have someone else do that. But I mean, you could do that with every plot. You can make that argument. But yeah, he's not integral. Like
Yeah.
as you say, you could have anybody else do it, and the movie would essentially be the same.
Mhm.
That the beauty of the novel, that relationship is so important to it, and that's a core part of it. You take that relationship out, the novel is kind of ruined.
Mhm.
Whereas this, you could replace him with old Yeller, and and old Yeller could jump on the Russian at the end of it and tell him the Russian's about to shoot him, and you would have the same movie, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
basically. I mean, in the book, they don't have this in the movie, but I think I don't think in the movie, Hari Chunder he's not in the
he's
end, right?
what was it?
The other guy, there's like number 15 or whatever, Hari Chunder, the
The other
other,
spy. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, who's in this movie always referenced as fat. He's not in the Russian scene, right? It's
No, he's not there.
only
He doesn't die
Mahbub
either.
Ali.
Yeah, he doesn't die either.
He
Does
dies in
he?
the movie.
Yeah,
No,
that's what
he
I mean,
doesn't
but he
die in the
doesn't.
book.
What
But
do you mean? He doesn't die in the book.
he's in the Russian scene when they're going through the pass.
Yeah,
He's there to get the papers.
yeah,
And if you just had him not die and get the papers instead of the llama,
yeah. You'd have the same.
eh,
You'd have the same thing.
you'd have the same thing. As opposed to in the book, it is vital that you have
Yeah,
the
it is
llama
the
going through
llama.
these things and questing after, specifically he thinks this is his path to his river, and it leads to the greatest demonstration of worldly attachment he has ever had. That kind of irony is lost in the movie.
Yeah, a lot gets lost in the movie. This is one of those movies just where short shorthand, film often it has to do shorthand, and I get it. Like it's a different we've discussed this, I'm sure, in some of our other adaptation things where film has shorthands that it often does for certain relationships. If it wants to make you know that this couple have fallen in love at first sight, they zoom in on their eyes and they have, and it's just like, okay, yeah, in Pride and Prejudice, that's like 7 pages of them, going back and forth on something. Here, it's like, yeah, we can't do that. We gotta lickety split this thing, and it works. I think maybe in part because they're relationships that are, we know what the relationship is, and so it's easy for us to fill in the gaps with what the movie shorthand is doing. The relationship between Kim and the llama in the book is just it's not like anything else that we would normally understand. It's a really complicated relationship that people just don't have, most people just don't have. And so you can't shorthand it. You would have to make a good another hour in this movie to really get at it. And the movie wasn't really interested in that. And I get it. It would be a totally different movie and it wouldn't have made as much money, so that's what they went after. So you might as well just not have had it. Um, but it's a shame, but I get it. This is a price of adaptation. You just can't do it. And so how you would depict that relationship on screen without significant extra time, you couldn't. So they just have him be a saddled man handing off asking for rice. It's such a bad, and that even by itself would be a bad change. But just so many of the other things are not just kind of boring. Or not boring, but just again shorthanded. The most exciting parts are when you just get to see them walking along the road and like talking to people and watching Kim sort of beg. Those are the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, when Kim's begging, it's a lot of fun. There's something in this they don't do in the book. He begs from people who know who he is. So he changes back into his
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I
Indian
liked that. Yeah.
garb and begs from the kid from St. Xavier's School, the British school he is attending, to see if the kid will recognize who he is. And the kid doesn't and gives him money. That's really fun. And I think that's also a testament to Dean Stockwell kind of nails this character.
Yeah,
I do think for a lot of the problems in the acting,
he's
especially
good.
for Mr. Flynn, that's that's a lot of fun. And having him jump into these different personality, different, I guess, identities, which he does very comfortably, is it's really cool. It works really well. And that scene especially, I think that scene was my favorite when he ends up just, and he kind of on the spur of the moment realizes, oh, I could beg from this guy who knows me. I bet he won't recognize me, and it works perfectly.
Yeah.
That's a nice little bit. And I'm guessing like that energy in combination with a lot of it was shot on site. Dean Stockwell, the actor who played Kim, was apparently never on site. I think Errol Flynn was. They filmed a lot of Kim scenes back at the studio, but you did
Oh,
see a
interesting.
lot
So
of
he didn't film
India.
them in India. Oh, interesting.
No, they used doubles for
Oh, that,
Stockwell,
yeah.
not for Flynn, or at least not exclusively. And so you got to see, as an audience member, a lot of India. You got to see the big Technicolor epic, which seemed to be like the 50s. We're into the big Technicolor epic. I think Giant, see Giant, if you want another one of these things.
Oh, I
And
mean they're all over the place. I
yeah,
mean
they're all
these,
over the.
this is the whole, what is it? Sword and sandals, or obviously those are all the Technicolor
Yeah,
epics, and
sword and sandals, and I think also like,
East of Eden, and these sort of
well, yeah,
like.
Easton of Eden isn't sword and
I guess
sandals; it's
although East of Eden is
contemporary.
also black and white, isn't it?
Is it?
East
I
of Eden in
thought.
Technicolor? I can't remember now.
No, I thought Easton Eden was in
Is
color.
is it is it in color? I can't remember now. I
I'll
haven't seen it
check.
in years. I think we're gonna do that one later.
Oh, and we get a John Steinbeck. Oh,
It's a John Steinbeck. It's a
God bless us.
good. Supposedly, it's John Steinbeck's best book, which supposedly it is. I haven't read it. Supposedly, I've seen the movie. I've read a lot of Steinbeck. I don't like Steinbeck. I really, really don't like Steinbeck. But supposedly, East of Eden is actually good. I've heard. So we might do it later. Uh,
I
but I
thought
haven't
it
watched the
was
movie
in
since
color.
2005. I can't remember. I haven't watched it since 2005. For some reason, I thought it was in black and white. But it's been literally 20 years. I watched it in September of 2005. I remember exactly when I watched it. So it's been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it looks to be in color here. But
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
then good.
regardless, yeah, I mean, you're getting a little bit of different things with a little different from Sword and Sandals because it's these kind of grand epics, but they're also connected to the real world. Like Giant and East of Eden are more or less contemporary with modern American life. Giant's a little earlier, that's more 19th century, but
Well,
it's
I mean,
not the
this is
distant.
relatively speaking, I mean, this would be like us having a movie set in the 1950s.
Yeah,
It's not that far back.
no, it's not. I think that's my point, kind of. I
Yeah.
think we're moving away from, at this point, sword and sandal to a grand spectacle that somehow speaks to contemporary issues. In this instance, we have to deal with Afghanistan and Russia and those territories, right? Which was a relevant issue in 1950. And so instead of like the Ben-Hur thing where you're looking at grandiosity through distance, not only through
Yeah.
grand staging, but also it's 2,000 years in the past. Here you get that kind of same thing. It's a
It's not that they're
grand
moving away, though. I
epic.
think I think we are moving away. They were not moving away because Ben-Hur comes out well after this. But
Yeah, well, maybe it's a little bit of both, but yeah, whatever.
well,
I think
Ben-Hur
it's
comes out 9 years after this.
mhm,
That's the height. I mean, this is the Quo Vadis comes out right around this time.
mhm,
These
yeah,
movies are I agree. There is a desire for big Technicolor movies, but I think they're running in parallel. I don't
mhm,
think there's one or the other. I think those ancient glorious, the Ben-Hurs and the Cleopatras and the Quo Vadises are running alongside of these sort of contemporary ones, as we're saying, the East of Edens and these kind of this kind of movie as well. I think they're running on the same
yeah.
track.
They're attracting the same audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. So, getting into Kim the movie, everything else.
I
Um,
mean, nothing else. I mean, it's not a bad. It's not like we've watched far worse movies. Um, It's fine. It's interesting that so few so far. I think we'll get some better ones. I think the next one we're doing is supposedly a very good movie. But it's fascinating that so far we've had relatively lackluster books and even more lackluster films. Quo Vadis was at least a decent book. The movie's pretty mediocre. This is a much better book. I think this is a very good book, but a pretty mediocre movie. I think it seems to just be the trend so far. Uh, I think the next one we're doing is a legit, but these are pretty so far they've just been pretty bland, and it's hard to tell what the problem is. Some of them is just the source material is kind of bland. But it's also some of these Nobel Prize winning works are good in a way that is very hard to get on film.
Yeah, they're not particularly cinematic. Um,
Well, Kim is, but it's a totally not what Hollywood. I mean, as far as like making a cinematic film goes,
mm,
Kim is
I
fine.
guess
As
it's
Quo
fine.
Vadis was
Yeah.
fine.
Mm.
You know, they're fine as cinematic, epic trouble to crew. You know, there's just we're not gonna watch them nowadays. They're not that good, but they're fine as films. They're just not good as adaptations because they miss so much of the really cool stuff.
And maybe just what happens with literature that doesn't translate particularly well. Very good literature uses that medium in order to explore interiority in a way that cinema doesn't do to the
Struggles.
same
Cinema
extent.
struggles, yeah,
Yeah,
to a significant extent.
cinema has to visualize interiority, and that
But even when you're doing a
doesn't work
play
well.
like Jose Echegaray, it
Mm.
didn't work.
No, I mean that was just a bad
Bad
movie.
play and a bad movie,
And it's a
but
bad, yeah. I mean part of it too is at this time period we're still in this idea that there is supposed to be some sort of spirit of the people that undergirds everything. This kind of nationalism, and it's here too in the nomination. Like this is Kipling is supposed to stand in for England
yeah.
for 3 centuries of great English writing. And if Tennyson was alive, we'd give it to him. But unfortunately, he's dead, and Dickens is dead, and I guess you're alive. So
You're the
here you
best
go.
we got.
You know. So I think it's just the project at this point. This idea of great literature is somehow connected to an understanding of a national people. And these films are being made for a completely different reason. This movie is being made because Russians can be bad guys. People like big epics, and Russians can now be bad guys. So we're
Yeah.
going to make that. I think you make the point with Quid Vadis of it's sort of the same thing. It's a Cold War thing. We're going to make this Grand Catholic epic in opposition to, the communist, atheistic Russians of the Soviet Union. And so it's just two really weird and specific projects. One, 19th century nationalism, which is held over by the
Yeah.
virtue that the Swedish Academy is ancient, and anti-Sovietism, which is nothing to do with national. I mean, it doesn't exist in the first generation of the Soviet, excuse me, of the Nobel Prize awards. And so you have two projects that just don't work together, but have, I guess, name recognition. So you can use Nobel Prize winners because they have some name recognition. I guess then you also
Yeah.
have Jose Echegaray, where it's just crap
Just
all the way
trash.
down. But
It's just
that's fine.
trash.
I guess trash sometimes happens. And yeah, I guess this is what happens when your measure for aesthetic excellence is something beyond the work itself, which has to
Yeah.
happen. I
Which
think,
happens a lot with the Nobel Prize, and I don't mind that. I mean, I think it's not just an aesthetic prize. It has another function. That's okay, I think.
but it makes the adaptation thing, especially adaptations several generations later or several decades later, it makes them in tension with the original work,
Yeah, I would agree.
because, yeah, for those reasons. All right. So are we going to throw our first English writer into our canon as of yet?
We didn't do Sienkiewicz, by the way, last week. We should
Do we
just mention
not?
it. We
Oh,
didn't say whether he was in the canon.
do we want to
We
keep
didn't do it.
Sienkiewicz in?
We should just say, I really would Quo Vadis, no. Um, I think you could make a case for his other trilogy, his With Fire and Sword trilogy, but I'm not. I mean, we haven't really defined what canon is, but I'm not. I see canon. I guess this is how I'm interpreting it. I see canon if something's in sort of what we're going to consider our literary canon. It's something that tells an integral cultural, historical, linguistic, like some sort of it has to tell an important part of the story of our culture to our generation and future generations. I think that's kind of how I'm considering canon. I'm as much as I like Sienkiewicz, I'm not quite certain he fits. Uh, but I think Kipling does. I think Kipling does fit that category. I think you would struggle to understand a 19th century and early 20th century British imperial policy, which whether you like it or not is important to history and culture, and I think you'd struggle to understand or appreciate it without Kipling. I think Kipling does actually need to be there. Yes, I would say Kipling, yes. Sienkiewicz, I really would like to include him, but I'm not quite sure he's going to make the cut. But Kipling, yes.
I think I'm the same with Sienkiewicz, or going to this idea of the canon. I'm still going to rest my individual interpretation upon aesthetic excellence, which is, I would say, is contingent upon the work's ability to sustain ironies. And by ironies, I mean major questions that the work does not easily resolve, right? So a work that has kind of aesthetic excellence, but also leaves open the possibility of wonder, a sort of aporia type of wonder, that kind of irresolvable gap. I think that qualifies as an aesthetically, something worthy of an aesthetic canon. I don't know that Quo Vadis does that, even though I think
Quo doesn't. It
it
doesn't.
doesn't. It opens up interesting questions about love, and I think
Yes.
through the character of Petronius. If it was Petronius's book, maybe, right? If the
Maybe.
entire book was from Petronius's perspective, that would actually probably be super interesting. With the same conclusion, too, that he
Yeah.
eventually just doesn't get there, that he eventually commits suicide. I think with Kipling, and having read, I read this book, I really got into him. So I read the Two Jungle Books book, I read The Man Who Would Be King. I think there is this sort of idea of identity as being something that is both culturally hewn but also individually mutable. An
Yeah, it's a
individual
very
can
modern
step
idea. I
in.
mean, most modern historians and scholars would agree with that, I think,
Mm,
that identities are fluid, especially cultural identities are very fluid.
yeah, and I think that's what this book is pointing out in an interesting way, without really telling me exactly how identity is structured or how Kim's identity comes to be. He's a really strange, as you said, liminal character or existing in a liminal space, but it doesn't do that sort of, he's not one thing or he's not the other type of thing. He has this sort of incredible freedom to move through these different spaces. And there's explanations as to why, but it's also somewhat still mysterious. I think ultimately his relationship with the Lama is really mysterious. It's something we could kind of talk about endlessly. Like, why does he take to this old man?
Yeah,
He
why
sort of
does he
just
care?
does.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
just does.
He just
He's
does.
just fascinated. He sees him by the cannon, right? That's how he sees him by the cannon, which again, very interesting that he meets this llama while riding on a war instrument of war, and is just cannot, it just can't fathom what is this guy doing. and just really want is just drawn in there's just this sense of the inexorable. He's got to see this guy. He just has to figure him out, and he can't. But he's got to follow him. He's got to understand him, and he just wants to be around him. There's no sense of why. And again, this is what good writers do. Uh, and it's a very childlike thing. Kids do that all the time. They're like, who is this person? And they become obsessed with them. And I think that that's what a good writer does. They don't bother to, they don't need to spell it all out. They also don't, but they have to make it plausible, but they don't have to tell you everything. They don't have to tell you why. And there's no need for it. And that's what makes this a very good writer.
Yeah, he doesn't even seem that interested in the religion. He learns a lot more about Islam than he learns about
He learns a lot more
Buddhism.
from he learns a lot more from Abu Ali. But
Yeah.
um yeah, he doesn't seem to care. He just likes this guy. And I think there's, as you say, there's a lot to be said about how does one navigate life? Is it through individuals? Is it through creeds? Is it through what is it through a national identity? Is it through an ethnic identity? What how do we define ourselves, and how do we move between those different identities? But it, that's what I like about this book. It doesn't offer answers. It doesn't pretend that it can actually explain it. It's just offering you a person who has all of these aspects and in a very credible, understandable way, and invites you to think about the problem. And that's this is and I guess that's why I say this is a great work. In order to understand people's ideas of empire and understand people's cultural understandings of individuality and nationalism and religion and culture and all these kind of things in the early 20th century, and it still applies today. But in order to get that, this book, you can't, you have to have this book. This book is very valuable for that
Yeah. Agreed.
project.
Yeah. So I would keep it in, I guess, my idea of a canon, even though I think the Alf-Versen idea of the canon at this time is still the sort of idealist nationalist weird mess that's
Weird
coming.
mess thing, but I
Yeah.
think this book, more than any other, makes that question comprehensible to some extent. Um,
Or
it's their
makes the
best.
question interesting.
Yeah, it makes the question interesting. This is their best pick so far.
Yeah, I would agree.
This is their first legit pick. This one would, even if he didn't win the Nobel Prize, we would still be reading this
Hmm.
book.
Yes, exactly. Any other comments on Kim? Kim the film? The Jungle Book? Anything else?
Oh, I'm the king of the jungle. Oh, the swing king of VIP.
Oh, did we want to talk about Rikki Tikki Tavi?
I mean, we can skip Ricky Tikki Tavi. I
Okay.
did. I just like the cartoon. I love the cartoon. We read Ricky Tikki Tavi and did the cartoon too. I said this is one of the books. I hadn't read the story until today, but the movie, I must have seen it 100 times as a child. I've seen that movie so many times. I did not realize until recently that it was narrated by Orson Welles. So it's just it's great, right? Isn't it good? It's
It's
such a
a lot
good.
of fun.
It's a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
Rikki Tikki Tavi is a lot of fun.
There's nothing of great high cultural value at play here, but it's a great story.
Yeah, it's a fun story. It's just, it's well voice acted. I go see the movie. It's a good time.
It's a good story. The story is great too. It's a great little romp. I'm going to read it to my kids now. I think they would actually quite like it. It's a great little story. It's a fun story. The movie is great. Go see Ricky Tikki Tavi. It ain't canon, but
It's a good time.
it's a good ride.
If you enjoyed Kim, check out these other adaptations of Kim. There was a 1961 hour color adaptation of Kim, televised as part of NBC's series Shirley Temple's Storybook,
Ugh.
with
Ugh.
Tony Haig portraying Kim and Michael Reaney, I don't know, whoever that is, playing Captain Crichton. There's a London Films television film version of Kim made in 1984. It was directed by John Davies and starred Peter O'Toole, Brian Brown, John Rhys Davies, Julian Glover. There is also a
John Rhys
2016.
Davies would make a very good Mahbub Ali.
I think he was
He would make a
Mahbubali.
very good Mahbub Ali.
Yeah. I think Peter O'Toole was the llama for some reason.
That's a terrible casting.
That's a really
But
bad.
John Rhys Davies as Mahbub Ali is a great casting.
Yeah. And there's also a 2016 computer game of Kim. I haven't played it, but
Good
my
Lord.
God, I cannot imagine what that is. As soon as we're done recording,
I
I'm
can't
going to
imagine
look
it's
up
good,
the
but I would
2016
love to see
computer
it.
game of Kim. You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia, Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapt It, wherever fine podcasts are found. Join us next week when we discuss the 1909 Nobel Prize winner Selma Lagerlof, her work Thy Soul Shall Bear Witness, as well as the film adaptation The Phantom Carriage. See you then.
Wow, Talking Studios.
Next week, we'll be discussing the 1909 Nobel Prize winner in literature, Selma Lagerlof, and her novel, Thy Soul Shall Bear Witness. Pat, who would you hire to direct an adaptation of this work if you were tasked with such a job?
I mean, an obvious one. You go with someone like Tim Burton. I feel
Oh,
like
that's mine.
I see. That's I said it's obvious.
That's
Like
obvious, yeah.
yeah. I mean, you could talk. You could still use it, but it's obvious. Like it's a Tim Burton-y kind of movie. The only reason I might be a little hesitant for him is like it is a little preachy, but in some ways that's probably good to have someone like him who can just kind of make fun of it.
Push
But I don't know
against it
what.
a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Why did you pick Tim?
I thought Tim Burton would be very good at the macabre stuff without it going full horror. Like that would be my worry with some people
There's
that
a Beetlejuicy feel here, yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean the tone's a little different, but I think he could I think his kind of comic sense would probably contribute to an adaptation as opposed to take away from it.
Yeah, I
And
agree. I think this movie could use with a little little levity, but little
yeah,
sense of humor. A
I,
little sense of humor I think would carry it a long way, especially if you're doing a modern take
mhm.
on it.
Yeah, and I think he could carry that off. And he's also not necessarily this grand epic person. I think if you were to go with go with like Sam Mendes or something like that, you
Yeah.
might have this kind of blow up into this big story of of these spirits and what have you. And I think Tim Burton, as you saw with Beetlejuice or even with Edward Scissorhands, is good
Even
with
like a
kind of
big fish,
intimacy.
like Big Fish
Big
kind of
Fish.
has this sort of like magical feel to it. Like I think he could actually do it. I don't think he should, but I think he could.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is not the thing to adapt. Maybe the silent film version of this is the best place
I
for
think
it.
it is. I actually was going to discuss that. I think this would be, it's a good silent movie. I'm not sure it would make the transition to talkies very well.
No, I agree.